Imagine a night so dark it's like the world's been swallowed whole. Streetlights flickering weak and useless against the void. The wind's tearing through empty streets, howling like a beast, slamming against loose shutters, rattling anything it can touch. Rain's crashing down, thick, icy drops pounding wet cobblestones, turning the road into a glistening, treacherous sheet. No one's out there. No footsteps splashing, no voices rising. Just the storm ripping the silence apart. But wait, listen close, past the chaos. There's this tiny, quivering sound sneaking through, small but sharp, like a needle through the noise. In a grimy alley corner, under a sagging, torn awning, there's this little shadow trembling so hard it's a blur. It's a puppy, scrawny, soaked through, barely a whisper of fur stretched over his fragile bones. He's been out here too long, dumped by some heartless soul days ago, left to fend for himself in a cardboard box that's now a soggy ruin. The cold slicing into him, hunger gnawing at his empty belly, his ribs poking out like a cruel outline. Alone, gut-wrenchingly alone. Scared beyond words, his big eyes darting at every flicker of shadow. He lets out these soft, whimpering barks, half sobs, half pleas, like he's screaming into the dark. "Please, somebody save me!" It's raw, desperate, a sound that claws at your chest. The rain keeps hammering, drowning his cries. No one's coming, or so it seems. Then, out of nowhere, like a spark in the black, something stirs. A sleek shape glides through the shadows, silent as a wraith. It's a cat, lean and wiry, her wet fur plastered tight to her frame. She's no ordinary stray. She's a survivor, battle-worn, with a past that hangs heavy on her. She'd been a mom once, not long back. Had a litter of kittens she'd fought to keep alive, scrounging scraps from trash cans, hiding them in a busted crate under a bridge, hissing at rats that got too close. She'd curl around them at night, purring to drown out the city's noise. But winter hit hard, froze the life out of them one by one, left her empty, a shell with nothing but grit to keep her going. Now her eyes, fierce and glowing like embers, lock onto that trembling puppy. She stops dead. Trouble? She seems to think. Or something I can't walk away from. Her tail flicks, instincts clashing with this pull she can't name. The puppy's fading, barely hanging on, legs wobbling, breath shallow. He lifts his head, slow and weak, rain dripping into his eyes, and meets her stare. Those eyes, huge, wet, brimming with terror and a faint, fragile hope, say it all. "Don't leave me too." She holds that gaze, caught, her breath puffing white in the damp air. For a long, heavy moment, she is still, rain streaking off her whiskers, pooling around her paws. Then, something breaks inside her, soft and fierce. She steps closer, sniffs him, nose brushing his soggy fur, cautious but drawn in deep. And then, oh, this'll hit you hard, she leans in and licks him, warm and tender, like she's whispering, "You're mine now, little one." That puppy feels it, that sudden, impossible kindness, and it's like his last spark flares out. He can't fight anymore. His eyes flutter shut, and he just trusts her, lets himself fall into her care. She doesn't flinch, grabs him by the scruff, gentle but firm, and hauls him through the downpour. She's on a mission, weaving past toppled bins, dodging rivers of runoff, till she finds this beat-up shed, boards warped, roof leaking like a faucet, but it's a lifeline. Drags him inside, flops onto the damp dirt, and curls tight around him, her body a shield against the storm's icy grip. Her fur's drenched, but she's warm underneath, and that heat sinks into him, chasing the chill from his bones. That night, under the relentless drum of rain, they sleep, locked together, two broken things stitching each other back up. Morning creeps in, gray and soggy, the storm finally easing off. This woman's passing by, call her Ellie, on her way to open her little flower shop down the block. She's got her own weight, lost her husband to cancer 3 years back, lives alone in a too-quiet apartment, filling the silence with plants she talks to like friends. She's bundled in a scarf, head down against the chill, when she glances at the shed and freezes. There they are, a tiny puppy and a cat, tangled up, still out cold. He's pressed into her, head nestled on her paws, and she's wrapped around him like she'd claw the world apart to keep him safe. Ellie's throat catches, tears hit fast, hot against her cold cheeks. It's too much, that raw tenderness cutting through her own loneliness. She kneels, hand shaking, and scoops them up, wet for her muddy paws, the whole messy bundle, and takes them home, no second thoughts. Weeks turn into months, and that puppy? He's a force now. Starts off so small Ellie could cradle him in her hands, shivering and frail, needing her to bottle feed him warm milk every few hours. She names him Rusty, those reddish patches in his fur, and soon he's tearing through her place, chasing dust motes dancing in the sun, shredding her slippers, barking at the mailman like he's a hero guarding the fort. The cat? Ellie calls her Shadow, for the way she slips around, quiet and fierce, always watching. Shadow's his anchor, teaches him to paw at the door when he needs out, swats his nose when he nips too hard. They're a duo, sprawl on the couch in a heap, steal crumbs off Ellie's plate, wrestle in the patchy backyard till they're panting and grinning. Ellie sits on her stoop some evenings, coffee going cold, just watching them. Two strays who crashed into her life when she was drowning in her own quiet. Years stack up fast. Rusty grows into a big, goofy mutt, all muscle and slobber, tail thumping like a drum. Shadow's still his rock, teaches him tricks like rolling over for a treat, curls up against him on chilly nights when the wind rattles the windows. They've got routines now. Rusty bounds to the door when Ellie grabs her keys. Shadow waits on the sill for her to come home. Ellie's part of it too, tosses Rusty a tennis ball till her arm aches, scratches Shadow's ears while they watch old movies, feels her creaky apartment turn into a real home. She starts smiling more, humming while she waters her plants, telling customers at the shop about her kids with a laugh. But then, brace yourself, it shifts. Shadow starts fading. Age sneaks in, gray threading her black fur, her steps turning stiff and slow. She'd always been tough, dodged cars, fought off bigger strays, but time doesn't care. Then she gets sick, real sick. Stops eating, barely lifts her head, just lies there on her favorite blanket by the heater, breathing thin and ragged. Ellie's a wreck, tries broth, warm towels, sits up nights googling symptoms with a lump in her throat. But it's Rusty who takes over. That puppy Shadow saved? He's a tank now, broad and solid, but with her, he's soft as ever. Parks himself right beside her day and night. Stretches out on the floor, his big head resting on her side, his warm breath sinking with her faint ones. He doesn't budge, not for kibble, not for the squirrel taunting him outside, not even when Ellie begs him to eat. Just stays, holding her tight, giving back every bit of that first night's warmth. When Shadow's time comes, when her chest lifts one last, shaky time, he's there. Presses his nose to her, lets out this low, mournful whine that cracks the room wide open, like he's begging her to stay just a little longer. Ellie's sobbing, stroking them both, whispering, "You did good, girl, you did so good." Rusty doesn't move for hours, stays glued to her, guarding her even now, like he's paying back a debt carved deep into his soul. Ellie sits with him till dawn, the silence heavy, her hands buried in his fur. It's brutal, but it's pure, right? This isn't just some cute pet story. It's bigger, deeper, rawer. It's about family, the kind that blindsides you out of nowhere. They didn't share blood, didn't even belong to the same world, but they chose each other. That stormy night, when everything was falling apart, they found what they'd lost, someone to fight for, someone to hold on to. Love did that. Raw, no rules love turned strangers into soulmates. Hey, you out there, what about you? Ever had someone, or something, rewrite your life like that? A pet who pulled you through the dark? A friend who showed up when the world went quiet? Drop it in the comments, I'm all ears, I swear. Smash that heart if this hit you hard, cause it's got me wrecked over here. Rusty, he kept going, lived loud and big, chasing birds in the yard, snoring on Ellie's feet like a freight train. But he never forgot Shadow. Some nights, he'd sit by the window, staring out at the dark, ears twitching like he could hear her purring from somewhere far off. Ellie caught him once, months later, lying on Shadow's blanket, nose buried in it, eyes half closed like he was dreaming her back. And Ellie? She'll tell you straight. Those two rewrote her whole damn story. She'd been drifting, lonely, locked in her own head, just surviving, till they crashed in and shook her awake. They taught her family's not about blood. It's about who's there when the lights go out, who stays when the storm's loudest. So next time you're lost in your own dark night, feeling like no one's left, look around. Someone, or something, might just be waiting to drag you back to the light, to make you whole again.